Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wired for Success podcast. Today, we want to talk about the silent pressure that our young people feel. And we want to talk about what causes, or not what causes, but how often overwhelm, pressure can push our young people to either use or rely on substance abuse, as in drugs, alcohol, rather than maybe look for support. And sometimes maybe they can't find that support. So this is why they go into using different substances to relieve their overwhelm. Now, as parents, what can you do or what can you keep doing? And maybe what can you avoid doing in order to support teenagers or young adults who are facing this overwhelm and those pressures? So today we want to talk about that. But so this is Steve Costello, my colleague, myself, Patience Modevi, and we are the duo of the Wired for Success podcast. So a little bit of a serious talk today. Steve, I'll let you tell the story.
Thanks, Patience. So I'm going to start by just sharing a little bit of a story of a real event that happened here in the village where I live in the south of France 2 weeks ago. And basically, what happened is that two young people under the age of 25 driving their car on a straight road somehow left the road. Tires didn't burst, nothing like that. They left the road, crashed into a tree, and both young people were killed. And that was devastating. It was devastating, obviously, for the families of those two young people. It was devastating for the extended families. It was devastating for the people in the community. We're a small community of just over 400 people spread out between a village and some little hamlets. So it affected everybody. It affected friends, schools, people in school, children in school. They've been talking about it. The businesses around, the farming community is a big community, so it's affected that community. One of the young people was part of the farming community. And one of the things that comes up is that there are severe statistics relating to mental health, particularly the mental health of young people. So in the UK, for example, 1 in 5 teens are probably living with a mental health disorder right now. 1 in 5. Think about that number. It's scary. It's an awful lot. There are over 14,000 under 18s in the UK who've been on drug and or alcohol treatment in the last year or so. That's a lot of young people. Think about that. And in Europe, there's around about 9 million adolescents struggling with things like anxiety and depression and other mental health disorders or illnesses, I should say. And these statistics are more than statistics. They're easy to read off and say, oh dear, that's bad, or that's terrible. But they're more than that. They're warning signals and they're telling us important things about our young people. They're telling us that our young people are not just moody, not just difficult, not just challenged, or whatever you want to throw at it. They're actually overwhelmed. Patients, you mentioned overwhelm a minute ago. It's because of overwhelm. That's why these things are going on. There's no value in talking about people selling drugs, for example, the drug dealers. That's not going to fix it.
Yeah.
It might help, but it's not going to fix it. The autopsies of these two young people who died showed that they had high levels of drugs and alcohol in their blood at the time of death. So that we know is possibly the physical reason why that car crashed. that we don't know much about the background. But one of the things that does matter a great deal is that it's hardly surprising that parents of teens and adolescents are worried or concerned, confused, sometimes feel even disconnected from what's happening in their young people's mental or emotional well-being. And why are they disconnected? Partly because they're unable to talk about it. They don't know how to start up the conversation, or partly because young people are being secretive. They don't want their parents to know that they're going out over drinking or taking drugs or whatever they're doing. So there's a real difficulty there. So it's that difficulty that we can address here, because through Wife for Success and through the experience of you patients and myself, we know how what works and what we can do to help this situation. I know it can feel helpless. I know it sometimes feels like nothing gets through. I'm a parent of still a parent of a teen. She's 19 now. The others are no longer teens, but I know what it feels like. It sometimes feels like they're shutting down or drifting away. But even when it feels like they're shutting down or drifting away, our presence as parents still matters massively. So we need to find something that can shift, that we can use to shift things, to change things. So what do you think, patients? Have you got any thoughts on that?
I think first, before I go into the thoughts on that, there's one thing I wanted to say. The 1 in 5 young people that you mentioned in the statistics, the age is between 8 and 25 years old.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? It starts as early as 8 to 25 years old. And one thing we need to be aware of is that the world in which we live now has got so many pressures, societal pressures, academic pressures for the young people, or even economic pressures. And all of this, it takes a toll. We might, as parents, be quick to dismiss that our children do not have those worries and all they think about is doing, I'm going to put in quotes here, being bad or misbehaving just for the fun of being teens. But no, let's come back to the reality. There's so many things that are putting pressures on our kids now. And we've talked about it so many times and I think this is one of our leading points often, is that communication is key. Not just not just listening and then putting off whatever's happened and okay, yeah, but that will be all right then, and just passing through. But really having communication that goes from point A to point B and comes back from point B to point A, and there's an understanding and there's um, a deeper connection to the words, their meaning, what is really meaning in real life. Like we spoke about in a recent episode, when you say, I'm fine, what does I'm fine mean? You know? It's going and finding a little bit more of that. And unfortunately, they, the statistics are so shocking that you then realize that actually they don't find, young people now find it really hard to find the help and the support. Therefore, sometimes or well often they go and get the support elsewhere. And that elsewhere is rising and rising is drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. So let's just jump back to the role of the parent for a minute.
Yeah.
One of the things that kind of stands out in my mind, not just as a psychologist and academic and all of those things, but as a parent, is that quite often I hear the same or very similar stories repeating. So the kids, have you done your homework? Yeah. You know they've not. Have you done it yet? And you still know they've not, but it keeps repeating. That's just a simple example. So perhaps we need to look for the deeper picture behind, have you
Mm,
done your homework? Why haven't you done your homework? What's going on? What's happening? But we need to find gentle ways of asking those questions because, of course, if we ask them in a threatening way, it may not mean to be
yeah.
threatening, then we're not going to get the right response. I don't mean the right answer, I mean the right
Yeah.
response. That's different. So, as parents, perhaps we can ask ourselves a question. What do I believe right now in
Mm,
relation to what's happening with my son, my daughter, my teen? Is it actually correct? Is it true? And if we don't know the answer to that question, we need to go to them and find out what the answer is, as I said a moment ago. So that's quite an interesting way of looking at it. But sometimes asking simple questions that are outside of the heat zone is a good way to open up a conversation because it's a conversation that we need to have. Quite probably those two young people who died 2 weeks ago, I know one, for example, works in the agricultural community. There's a lot of reports here in France about how the levels of suicide in the agricultural community are ridiculously high, but nobody's talking to them. But also, a farmer also told me this a few days ago. We keep it in the house. We don't go out and talk. We keep it to ourselves. And that doesn't end well. And the statistics are showing that that doesn't end well. So I'm not trying to scare parents by saying this is going to happen. What I'm saying to parents is let's keep a dialogue going because that dialogue is essential. Let's not say, oh, he's gone out drinking again. She's gone out drinking again. Let's try and find out what's going on there.
and I believe
Sorry.
it's really important to have this, I want to say, compassionate view, as in not diminishing what someone else is going through. This is something that often can happen. As a parent, we've got so many balls we're juggling, we're juggling, that often when our children are saying things, we will kind of minimize and say, oh, but that's all right, or that's okay, or oh, that will easily go away. No, because everybody feels pressure in a different way. So the even if you have two teens at home, the two teens are not gonna react the same way. They're gonna have different way. So it's really an idea of like, okay, how can I show my presence? How can I show that I am there and there is an openness so that they can come and see me if there is anything that they want to talk about?
Yeah. I've got a tool that we can share. It's a tool that works with adults, not only young people, but it might be particularly effective for parents of teens to use with their teens. And I call it name it to tame it, not name it to shame it or anything like that, but name it to tame it. And the whole idea is based on neuroscience. All the programs that I work with and use are all scientifically based, so they're not hearsay or anything like that. And the goal is to enable young people to accurately label what it is that they're feeling. So it might be, for example, anger, it might be fear, it might be boredom. We hear that quite a lot. I'm bored. My daughter, the number of times she says that is unbelievable sometimes. I'm bored. Okay, let's talk about it. Sometimes they feel shame, but they don't articulate those feelings. I feel anxious. I feel angry. I feel fear, or whatever it is. They don't often say that in those simple terms because it's difficult. They're not used to it. So the whole idea of name it to tame it is to get them to ask them the question, how do you feel right now in this moment? Tell me. Don't analyze it, don't judge it, just tell me. I feel angry. Great. It's out in the open. I feel angry. And acknowledge that, yes, you feel angry. I understand. But that opens the door. It also lets the brain and the nervous system relax a bit as well, which sounds a bit spooky and a bit science fiction, but it's not. By naming anger, which is just the first example that came into my head, the nervous system that is feeling that the part of the nervous system that's feeling the anger begins to relax a little bit. Okay, you've named it. It's out in the open. That's good. So it's helpful. So the whole idea is to guide our teams to build a shared language of emotions. So it's better than saying to them things like, what's wrong with you? My mum used to say that to me, what's wrong with you? And it never helped. Really, it did not. She did mean well, but it didn't help. Or another question like, what's going on inside? I don't know what you mean by that. So we've got to be really careful. So how about just keeping it simple? What do you feel right now? Give me a word. I feel angry. That's great because that gives you a really powerful start point. Or I feel frustrated. And the whole idea of making this, that enables us to make a shift, is that it opens doors. It opens doors to feel safer, to
Yeah.
help regulate as well, to regulate anger. Those young people 2 weeks ago may have been angry about something. I don't know. Nobody knows. Not right now. And we'll never know. But they may have been feeling an emotion or emotions that hadn't been managed. Therefore, they took too many drugs, too much alcohol. Bang, that was the end. And also, another thing that this Name It, Tame It does, if we're doing it from parents to our young people, is that it develops another layer of trust.
Mm.
It shows that we're listening and that we care. So if anybody would like a copy, I can give a worksheet of that. It's a very simple PDF. Drop us a comment, leave a message. We will get back to you and a copy will be yours. Alternatively, some of my current clients, for example, tell me things, I present them a simple solution to something, and I can't do that on my own. Therefore, we can help. If you feel that you can't do it on your own, we can do joint sessions, parent and teen. We can do teen-only sessions. We can do parent-only sessions, whatever is necessary to help. Because we do need to have these very difficult conversations. I don't know about you patients, but I found this particular episode very difficult because
Yeah.
the 2 weeks ago is still very raw, very fresh, very difficult to manage. And I have support all around, and it's still difficult to manage. So
It's really difficult, and unfortunately, in this case, obviously, this recent incident that happened, unfortunately, is not gonna go away suddenly. It's gonna take time before it goes away. But it's also a reminder, I think. And it's a shame that we've got to go to an extreme to remind ourselves of what needs to be happening,
yeah,
um, to avoid or even to minimize the overwhelm that young people feel. This is an unfortunately this this incident you've mentioned is not one incident in so
and
many. Like,
in a million.
like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it
not.
happens a lot. Unfortunately, it happens a lot. And what do we need to do? Do we need to always have this happen? What can we do on a daily basis? What I think what is important, and I think we need to say this in this case, is that often looking for support, you are left with this idea of like, oh, how much is it gonna cost me? Or how much is gonna be? It will cost you way more than what you will pay a session to have a session here
Yeah.
that will help you or put you on a certain path or even open up this window of communication with your teens. So sometimes you have to rethink costs, rethink value of things. Would you rather pay for a service for support? Because let's be honest, the government, wherever you are, this is not even about England, France, or wherever you are, the government will not be able to invest in your child the way you will invest in your child.
Yeah.
Only you will be able to do that. So where you think you should not put the cost or you should avoid or you should cut the corner, we pay it somewhere else. And I'm sorry to put a bit of it seems like I'm putting more pressure. I'm not looking to put more pressure, but it is true. Where we are trying to be like, oh, I'm just gonna avoid this, or I'm just gonna look from afar the video that Steve and Patience have made this week. Well, this is something that you're going through. Just get in touch. Get the proper support. All we're doing here is creating awareness. The real work is when you contact us and we go and do exercises with you, we give you tools, we give you support and guidance. So, if in case what we've mentioned today triggered you in some way, or you are going through it today at the moment with your child, or you know someone who's going through this, a family that is going through difficult challenge, contact us, get in touch so that we can support you. So,
Thank you, Patience. Perfect.
yeah. So on this, we will leave you. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, you can put them in the comment and I'll come back to you, or DM us, send us an email if you need to, and we'll come back to you. Until next time, we'll see you soon.
Take care, everybody. Bye.